It was like a couple days after that. Hi guys, it's Kadence. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, I told you guys it's going to be a spooky one and it's going to be a scary one, so that's what today's video is about. I am going to be telling you guys about the time that I lived in a haunted house. Before we get into the video, I just want to say that this is legit. It's not clickbait. This really happened. I'm not making any of it up. A lot of people, every time I tell them this story, they always think that I'm lying or that I made it up or I'm exaggerating the story, but I promise you that is not the case. You know I would not lie to you guys. All the events that take place in this video are true. I'm not going to go into all of the details about this house, and I'm gonna leave out some of the things that happened while living there because talking about this house is very hard for me and it brings back a lot of really bad memories for me. It's Halloween time, so I thought why not make a video about it because, I mean, it's perfect for Halloween, so here we are. So this story takes place when I was 15 or 16, somewhere around that age. But basically, you know, we moved into this house and it was actually on Halloween night, so that should have been the first red flag. And before we even moved in, my sister and my mom went to the house first to like go look at it and do like a walkthrough and whatever. And the first thing my sister said when she saw the house is, "Oh my god, it's haunted." And then it was like a week later, me and my mom went over there to look at the house and to like sign the lease and all that stuff, and the first thing I said when I saw that house was, "Oh my god, it's haunted." And I had no idea that my sister said that. My mom didn't tell me, she didn't tell me. So, I mean, it's kind of weird that my sister and I both said that it's haunted as soon as we seen the house, but like I said, it does have like that haunted, creepy look to it, so I'm sure it was that or our subconscious was just like trying to tell us something, I don't know. But anyway, so we move in on Halloween night, and the first thing that you noticed about that house is like the vibe that it had and like the energy that it put off. You would walk in that house and it was like the air was just so heavy and so like still, if that makes sense. Like everything was just like intense in that house and it was just like heavy, and like just small like weird stuff would happen that like we didn't really pay attention to at first because, you know, we didn't know that it was haunted from the get-go. But like phones would die super fast in the house, and like electronic devices would die super fast, batteries would run out super fast, lights would flicker all the time, and you know, we never, like I said, we never really put much thought into it at that point because we had no idea that the house was haunted and we didn't even think about that. Like it didn't even cross our minds. But the first weird kind of unexplainable thing that happened is, okay, so before I say that story, I have to explain like how the house was set up. So this house, it was like a really big house, and half of it was used as like an office for like a chiropractic billing thing. Like it was just like one guy that worked there. Half of the house was an office used for that, and then the other half was where me and my mom lived. So in the hallway of the house there was like a door that was always locked, and that would go to the other side of the house, which was like the office. We had a key to that door for some reason, I'm not sure why. So one night my boyfriend and my best friend were over and my mom didn't know about it. I took them to the other side of the house, to the office side, and they were just gonna hang out on that side of the house until my mom went to sleep, and then once she was, you know, passed out, I was gonna go get them and then, you know, bring them to the other side, to our side of the house, and then we would just do whatever. So my boyfriend at the time and my best friend were on the other side of the house in the office, and I was downstairs in my room, so I was like, where they were sitting on the other side of the house, it was directly above me, if that makes sense. So I'm down in my room and I hear like all this commotion up there, and I just hear it sound like they were on the office chair and like rolling around, and I just heard like a banging and thudding and just stuff like that. So I call my boyfriend, I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you're gonna get us caught. You need to be quiet. My boyfriend's like, what are you talking about? We're just sitting here playing on our phones. I'm like, funny, like I hear office chairs rolling around, I hear you guys walking, it sounds like you guys are jumping up there. He was like, no, we thought that was coming from your side of the house because we heard that too. And I'm like, okay, you know what, whatever, just be quiet, like don't move. 5 minutes later, I start hearing like that noise again. So I call him back and I'm like, yo, you guys really need to like stop. And he was like, I swear to God, we're not moving at all. Like we're just sitting here playing on our phones. And then he told me how him and my friend were like hearing noises on that side of the house, and it sounded like there was someone upstairs on the other side rolling around on a chair, and it sounded like there was like little kids laughing up there, but like very, very, very faint. And I was like, okay, like you guys are assholes, shut up, stop trying to scare me, like it's not working, whatever you're trying to do, it's not gonna work. So eventually, it was like an hour later, my mom ends up falling asleep, so I bring them back to my side of the house and we go downstairs to my room, and they were telling me again about like what they heard, and I was just like, okay, you guys are seriously assholes, like stop trying to scare me, like that's not even funny. They thought that it was me pulling a prank on them, but like obviously I wasn't. I was sitting down in my room the whole time. Like I didn't believe them and they didn't believe me basically, so we just let it go. We quit talking about it and then we just like went on for the night. So it was a couple days after that, and my friend was over, another friend of mine, and we were downstairs hanging out in my room just watching TV and whatever, and then we went upstairs, and my room was in the basement at the time. So we leave my room and she starts going up the stairs, and I'm like literally right behind her, and she turns around and she screams so freaking loud. It was like the loudest scream I've ever heard in my whole entire life. Like it was like blood curdling scream, and then she just books it up the stairs, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And she's like in the bathroom, the door's locked, and she is just in there like freaking out, and me and my mom are looking at each other like, what the hell is this bitch on right now? Like she is tripping. Finally like calm her down, and I'm like, hey, like what happened? Like why are you freaking out? And she couldn't even talk. She was just like shaking, she was out of breath, she was crying, and me and my mom are just like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, are you okay? And she told me when she's going up the stairs and she turned around, she saw a little boy at the very bottom of the stairs, and he was looking up at us. And I'm just like, okay bitch, like you are definitely tripping. Like you are on some other level right now. Whatever drugs you're on, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop, because boo, this is not good. And then around that point is where things started to get really weird, and things started to happen a lot more frequently. Just little stuff would happen, like it sounded like there was people walking around both sides of the house, and it sounded like doors were opening and closing, lights started flickering a lot more, or like the lights would like shut off, and you would just hear like weird noises, like it kind of sounded like scratching, or like rats were in the walls or something. You know, all of those things easily have explanations, like, okay, well, you know, houses creak, they make noises, or the house is a very old house, so it could have had electrical problems, or the house could have had rats that we didn't know about. You know, like just everything we had like an answer to. My sister was over one night and she slept in the guest bedroom, and she, like, you know, like when you're falling asleep and you're like almost asleep but you're still like a little bit awake. Well, she was at that point and she heard somebody say, help me. And so she like woke up all the way and she's like, what the fuck? Like, am I just tripping? So then she sat up in bed and she was like fully awake at this point, and she thought that she was just like dreaming or something, but then she heard it again and it was the same thing. It was just help me. So she knew like she wasn't dreaming because she was fully awake at this point, but she didn't have like any creepy feelings or like bad vibes or anything, so she just said a prayer and then went back to bed. And she didn't tell me and my mom at that point because she didn't want to freak us out. She didn't want to like put thoughts into her head or anything. So I think it was a couple nights after that, my sister was gone at this point. She was back home and me and my mom were watching a movie, and I forgot what the movie is called, but it's a movie about like witches, like sisters that are witches and whatever, and like it's a cute movie. It's not like a scary, intense like horror film or anything like that. We're both laying on the couch watching that movie, and in the movie they're like doing a spell or chanting or something like that, and then the light right next to the TV just started flickering like hardcore. See, me and my mom were just like looking at each other like, what the hell? So my mom, she's just like joking around. She's like, okay, ghost, you can knock it off now. And then after that, like it started flickering like intense. It was just like on and off, on and off, on and off. So me and my mom, we just start like laughing, probably out of fear. You know, my mom's like, yeah, maybe we should change the movie. So, you know, we changed the movie and nothing happened after that. Like the light stopped flickering, and the light bulb was totally fine, by the way. Like the light's totally fine. Never had a problem with that light since. So that's when we kind of started to like maybe wonder, and we were actually talking about it that night, and she told me some stuff that happened to her that she didn't tell me because she didn't want to freak me out or put thoughts into my head. So then I told her, you know, like that time that I snuck my boyfriend and my friend over and what happened. and I told her some other stuff that happened to me, and I didn't want to tell her for the same reason. Like, I didn't want to freak her out, or I didn't want her to think like I was on drugs or something. We're both just like, okay, well, you know, it could be a possibility that this house is haunted, because we've always believed in like spirits and like the other world and whatever. So we're like, alright, well, you know, maybe it is haunted, maybe it's not, like whatever, as long as it like leaves us alone basically, then we're fine with it. And at that point we weren't getting like any bad vibes or anything. We just kind of put the possibility into our heads that yes, this house is haunted. So as time went on, more and more creepy, unexplainable things started happening, and something bad happened for the first time. And I'm not going to say what it was because it didn't happen to me, it happened to my mom, and she doesn't like hearing it or like talking about it or whatever, and I don't know if she's gonna be watching this video, so I'm not going to go into detail with that one. It was after that point that we definitely knew like, holy shit, this place is haunted and it's like intense. And so after that big event happened that like told us yes, this place is definitely haunted, we started looking into the history of the house and previous owners who lived there, and looking at all the police reports that were like tied to that house to see if there's like any murders that took place or anything. And we did find a couple police reports that happened at that house, and all of them were just people calling the cops saying that someone's trying to break in, or it sounds like there's somebody else in the house with them, or you know, just like weird stuff like that. So stuff that's already been happening to us basically. So there wasn't anything like drastic or anything super bad. No murders or kidnappings or anything like that. I remember one weekend we went over to my mom's friend's house, and we were over there for like the whole weekend. And we came back home and we had a gas fireplace, and then our stove and our oven were all gas. So we come home and we walk in and our gas fireplace is on full blast, and like the wall where the fireplace was on, like the whole thing above it was just like black. We walked into the kitchen and all you smelled was natural gas, and the oven was on full blast. All the stove, like each of the stove things, like the stove top, was turned on, but it wasn't lit, so it was just a whole bunch of gas coming out of our oven and our stove, and the fireplace was on. We started like freaking like, oh my god, we're gonna blow up. And it wasn't like, we didn't really use the fireplace much at that time, so we know for a fact that we did not leave it on. We didn't turn it on before we left, and there's no way to turn on the stove or the oven without lighting it first, like if that makes sense, because like you have to like light it and then turn it on. So that's really weird how like there was no flames, but like gas was obviously coming out. Kind of knew it was like why. It was like because you know the house is haunted and whatnot. And then you just started hearing things a lot more, and a lot more stuff just started happening. Like I remember you'd be in the bathroom like getting ready, looking into the mirror or whatever, and you just like see something walk up or down the hallway. That would even happen if you're like home alone, so obviously like it wasn't my mom or anything. And the same thing would happen to my mom, or like you'd be in the shower and you would see like the doorknob trying to like open, and that would even happen if you're home alone. And then more stuff would happen, like you were sitting on the couch and it would feel like someone sat down right next to you, and like the couch cushion would sink in and everything, but there's no one next to you. Or it would look like someone was like running their fingers down the blinds, or you know when you walk past a plant, like the leaves like move and it like makes like that noise. Well, that would happen constantly. You'd get that feeling like you knew that there was something else in the room with you. And I would get that feeling all the time there. But like you could tell it wasn't like an evil thing or anything. You could just like tell that there was something else in the room. There's a couple pictures that I took around this time of like me and my friends, or just like of the house or whatever, and you would see like weird things in the picture. Like one of them, you've seen like a spirit. She was like standing in the hallway and you could like see her outline, and she had like white bushy hair, like it was freaking intense. There was another picture going like facing down the stairs, and you saw the little boy at the bottom of the stairs, and if you remember from the beginning of the video, that's what my friend said that she saw, so that's weird. And then eventually things just started getting a lot more escalated, and things started to get more evil and more violent. It's like you'd be laying there and the blankets would get ripped off of you, the remote would go flying. One time there was a vase that went flying across the room, and then my mom started getting really sick a lot, and one time she actually went to the hospital because she was just fading in and out of consciousness and she couldn't stay awake. So I took her to the hospital and they did a spinal tap on her. They took countless vials of blood. They were checking all of her vitals. Like, they were doing all of these tests on her to try and figure out what was wrong, because her vitals, like her blood pressure and her oxygen and her heart rate and stuff, it kept like dropping and like going down. So obviously something was wrong. So they were doing all of these tests and all of the tests came back totally fine. There was nothing wrong with her. She wasn't sick. She didn't have the flu. She didn't have like a cancer or anything. Her white blood cells were fine. Like, everything test-wise was totally fine and normal, but here she was, her vitals were dropping. So we were in the hospital for a couple of hours and then she just kind of like snapped out of it and she was fine, and like her vitals started going back up. So they discharged her and we went back home, and stuff like that started happening a lot, just like unexplained symptoms and sicknesses and stuff. Stuff got to the point where me and my mom would take turns sleeping. So like one night she would be sleeping and I would stay up all night and like kind of watch over her and whatever, and then the next night I would sleep and she was up all night watching over me. Like I said, I am skipping a lot of details, by the way, and I'm not going into like the full-on story because A, I don't feel comfortable talking about it, B, I don't want to sound like a crazy person. So eventually, it was like 8 months after we lived there, because we lived there for 9 months, I decided to email a paranormal investigator team that I found, and I just gave them a rundown of the house and like what happened and, you know, all the events that have taken place. They came over as like a consultation thing, and as soon as they walked in, they're like, yeah, this place definitely has a lot of spiritual activity. We're just like, yeah, I know, tell us something that we don't already know. Come on, people, you're professionals. We set up a time and a date for them to come back, so then they came back and it was freaking intense. They like set up cameras all over the house. They set up infrared stuff all over the house. They had like this machine that put like hundreds of like little laser dots all over the wall, so then if something was like walk in front of it or whatever, then you'd see like the outline and like the laser, if that makes sense. They have this thing called a spirit box, which would pick up frequencies that we can't hear. Literally, like, all this stuff. Like, I felt like my house was like a reality TV set. Like, it was crazy. The whole entire living room was set up with like 20 computer monitors or speakers that were connected to the voice recorders, and just like, seriously, it was intense. So there's a psychic there and she had to leave because it was just like too much for her, and she's like, this has never happened to me. I'm sorry, you guys, but I need to get out of here. This is not a safe environment for me. I'm like, what are you trying to say? So anyways, like I was saying, the paranormal investigators and me and my mom and stuff were like doing all these things, and basically the first couple hours they just wanted us to go through like our day-to-day tasks and just like pretend like they're not there, and they, you know, wanted to see how like the spirits interact with us on the camera and like physically and whatever. And we noticed that the times that the spirits were most active was from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So they came at like, I think it was like 9 p.m. and then they were there until 10 a.m. the next day. So they got like that, you know, the worst time period on camera and on footage and whatever. And then they wanted all of us to like walk through the house together and like try to like talk to them and like, you know, ask them questions and stuff. The paranormal investigators asked something, and on the spirit box you heard it talk back to us, and oh my god, I almost passed out with fear like right there, because I was just like freaking out. I'm like, no way, like this is not real, this is not real. This is probably just pre-recorded or something, like they're just trying to scare us. So they told me and my mom, they're like, ask it something that only you know the answer to, or ask it a question that you've always wanted to know or whatever. So me and my mom asked it some questions, and the answers that it gave us proves that it was not pre-recorded. There's no way that the paranormal investigators would have known that beforehand. We found out that there are 7 spirits there, and one of them was a certain kind, and I don't like saying that word because it's like a very evil word, but it's the opposite of an angel. I'm sure you guys can figure it out. But so there's 7 spirits there, 6 of them were good, and then there was that one. You know, that explained where like all the evil stuff was coming from. And the thing that I told you about that happened to my mom, that happened 3 more times while we lived there, and that was the bad thing. That came on the spirit box and started talking, and that was honestly, like, I can still hear it to this day, and it's the most evilest thing I have ever heard in my whole entire life. I have full-on goosebumps right now. Things started to get really active once it was like 3 a.m. And like, it's so hard telling this story because I am missing so many details and so many parts of like from when I lived there, so it's like really hard to like have all of this make sense, but I'm really trying, you guys. But anyway, so like I said, it started getting really active around 3. And if you guys ever seen The Conjuring, that's literally what that house reminded me of. And what happened in that movie is basically what happened at that house. Like, when that movie came out, it was after me and my mom moved out. It was a couple years later, and I honestly thought for a minute that the paranormal investigators like sold our story and they made a movie based off of our house, because that movie was directly like what happened to me and my mom at the haunted house. But then I found out it was like some other family in some other state, so obviously it wasn't us. But anyways, so the paranormal investigators wanted to do a thing called blackout, which is where they turned all the lights in the house off. We couldn't have any flashlights, any candles, no light source whatsoever. And we went to the most evil part of the house where where most of the evil energy was, and of course that was downstairs in my bedroom. So we had to go down there, and we were sitting in there with all the lights off in the house, no light source whatsoever. We were asking the thing questions, and oh my god, like I can't, you guys, I can't. It's like I honestly thought that I was going to die that night. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. So we're asking that questions, and then we're asking, you know, the other spirits questions, and like, why are they there, why they're trapped there, like what happened, blah 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 blah. And then we went upstairs and saw something on the monitor in the living room. So one of the paranormal investigators went over, and he was bending over, and he was like looking at the computer monitor, and he yells, "Ow!" He lifts up his shirt, and there is a fresh scratch like going down his back, and you could tell it was fresh because like it started bleeding like right there in front of my own eyes. I'm just like, oh fuck no. Like, shortly after that, they're like, okay, like, we need to leave. It's not safe for us here. Like, we need to go, and we strongly suggest that you guys go. It was just crazy. So we actually got a U-Haul that morning, and we moved out because basically the paranormal investigators told us that if we continue to stay there, then something very, very bad would happen, which I'm sure you guys can figure out what I'm talking about. But it was very bad what was going to happen, and basically it was almost to that point. So I thank God every day for not letting that happen and not letting it get to that point, because whew. So like I said, we moved out, and I mean, it was honestly just so crazy living there. Like I said, that's where a lot of my anxiety and PTSD stems from, is from that house. Like, I don't know, like I just want to know why we lived there. Like, why did we have to go through that? Like, why us, you know? Like, oh, and while we were moving out, we were going through the garage on the other side of the house, and there's a book, and it was Demon Keeping for Dummies. Who in their right mind has that fucking book? Like, who would even want to purchase that book? Why would you even want to read that book? It was crazy. Like I said, I really hate talking about it, but it's Halloween time, so I decided why not. And I'm sorry if this story is all over the place. I didn't write a script for this. This is just all coming directly like from my mind, out of my mouth. Like I said, I am skipping a lot of details. But yeah, that was my story about when I lived in a haunted house. So if you guys have any stories like this, I would love to hear it in the comment section down below. So tell me, like, have you guys ever lived in a haunted house? I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and drop a comment, and also give this video a share, because, you know, I am talking about something that I don't like talking about, so I mean, that's the least you could do for me, right? Also, make sure to show your girl some love and hit that subscribe button, please, please, please. I know you want to. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook. Add me on YouNow. Go follow my Tumblr. I'll put the links in the description box down below. But anyways, I love you all. I hope you have a great Halloween. Stay safe, have fun, and I'll see all of you next Thursday.